Stock up, stock down after the second week of training camp, next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube, and also rate that show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports. What's going on, everybody? Like I said, we're going to be breaking down the biggest risers, fallers of week 2, and just kind of summarize and just put a bow on the end of this week 2 like we did with week 1, just to kind of break it all down for you. So as we always do, I want to kind of keep the same format, but I'll also add in the term stock up, stock down as we kind of go through some more of these pieces. But to start things off, let's go with just nothing but stock down people, aka injuries, because we have to just break it down, summarize it, and just so that we can get ready for week number 3 as people start getting ready for the Miami Dolphins, which can't wait. We're just a week away from NFL football. So let's get right into the injuries, where on Saturday, Kevin Fishbain tweeted this out, that the people that did not practice were Karan Amagaji, Bill Murray, Ricky Stromberg, Zay Frazier, Shamar Turner, Dion Hankins. And also, too, Jonah Jackson was back, like we mentioned, but then was out. So if you want to talk about stock up, stock down, right? All these are basically stock down because you're not out there. So Jonah Jackson, right? We want him to be out there because of his injury history. Because with the Rams, that was the big thing that kind of drew him back, was he was banged up. Now, if you want to talk about stock up, Ryan Bates being able to be out there and getting those good playtime reps, and also, knock on wood, being healthy. That is something that we have not seen when he's been a Chicago Bear. And quite frankly, I know in the offseason, we were talking a lot about, is he potentially going to even retire because of his arthritis? That arthritis is serious, as most people know. And the fact that he's out there and he's practicing day in, day out, have not heard anything about him, that's actually pretty darn good. The other pieces too, Shamar Turner and Zay Frazier. It's unfortunate because Zay Frazier's thing is personal. So whatever he's going through, I hope, I'm glad that he has that time, but it's also rough since he's not going to be out there. And that's someone that, even though that he's an older rookie, he still has a lot of development with him. And we said this when we drafted him. This was going to be a redshirt year. He wasn't going to go in and immediately compete for this cornerback 2 job, which, if you really think about it, maybe he might be one of those names that's out there, but I think realistically, he was never going to be something like that because more of a toolsy type of a cornerback. But then also too, Karan Amagaji just getting another injury setback. Unfortunate. Now, the other piece too is Jalen Johnson. Just with Jalen Johnson, if you want to talk stock down, I think it's just our concerns for Jalen Johnson, knowing this week that, hey, maybe he'll be ready for week 1 in the regular season. That's what kind of shook up a lot of Bears fans, including myself, where you're talking about your best defensive back. You want to make sure that he's out there for week 1, but there's a scenario that he can be back. But there's also, it sounds like there's a lot of other scenarios that he's not going to be out there. But next, I want to just kind of go through just an overall vibe of this training camp this week. Because last week, when we were talking about just the overall vibe that the Bears had with training camp, it was that the offense was behind. Now, let's transport ourselves a week ago. And it's crazy how everything has kind of transformed and everything has changed. Because when you go back a week, we were talking about Tyson Bagent. We're talking about Case Keenum. We're talking about quarterbacks not named Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams finally had a good day on Saturday, of week 1. But then this week, and I said this on the show, how are they going to respond? Because everything that they're doing it's not like, hey, you can't do this. It's them learning this offense and them understanding this offense. And this week was, can they understand that offense and start clicking? And the answer, yes. This week, we just heard so many good days, consistent days from this offense. Now, still not perfect, right? We're still not saying that Caleb Williams is this superstar that day one they can already start playing. But what we're seeing is that progression that we wanted. And what I love about this is it's consistent progression. It's not just flashes that we're accustomed to, like kind of how Caleb was last year and how Justin Fields was and how Mitch Trubisky was. Actually, Mitch Trubisky, let's be real, he was the greatest practice quarterback of all time. For those that remember, anytime that there was an interview, it was Matt Nagy saying, man, Mitch Trubisky, great week of practice, best week of practice I've ever seen. And then come game day, all that went out the window. But really, with this, in all seriousness, Caleb Williams has been looking very consistent. Now, he's been looking better and better and better, but there's still those little minor little tweaks that need to happen. So I want to just kind of take time to pause to really kind of reflect that in week one, very bad, like the offense, lots of hiccups, yelling by Ben Johnson. And now you're starting to see they're starting to get this. And this is what you wanted to see, because if they weren't, I'd be here right now saying that we have some concerns, because why aren't they getting it? Why aren't they understanding it? But it clearly seems like everyone's bought in, and this is what you want to see. So then next, let's get into the hype train, because overall stock up. So if you want to talk about stock up, Caleb Williams, right off the get-go, because Caleb Williams was not looking good. If you're comparing week 1 to week 2, his stock went super high because people were kind of like, hey, what about Tyson? Why is Bagent understanding this offense better than our starting quarterback? And so with Caleb being able to understand this, his stock up. But there's two people whose stock just skyrocketed. If you could buy player stock, this was the Nvidia. This was the the Nvidia that just skyrocketed. It's the rookie receivers. Colson Loveland, Luther Burden. These guys were the names. I know on my thumbnails, it was always them because they were dominant. And you're talking about Colson Loveland, the receiving, he looks fluid. Everybody that's seeing him is just, he looks fluid out of his routes. And it's not just that. It's in the one-on-one passing drill, the pass block drills as well. The run block drills. He's looking good in those when pads are on. And that's the big thing. Pads are on. He's looking good during practice. Now it's still his practice. You want to see, I'm really excited to see what he looks like against Miami. But this is all what you want to see out of that top 10 pick that you spent on this tight end when everyone else is saying Tyler Warren, and Tyler Warren makes a one-hand grab. We kind of second guess. We're like, oh, wait, maybe we want Warren instead of Loveland. But right now, Loveland's looking really good. So be happy with that. Be happy with what he's been showing. And also Luther Burden. Luther Burden coming out. I know a lot of us were nervous because he wasn't signing his deal. And then when he signed the deal, I said this before, when he was out there, he was posting all over Twitter and all over TikTok and showing his workout regimen. I'm here after hours and I'm putting in that work. And then you're not out there on the practice field. So he was my biggest stock down for week 1. Comes back, and I think it was all a surprise to us that he came in on what I think it was Monday, and he's getting some reps out there. Gets yelled at by Ben Johnson. And then the next practice freaking dominates. And then the next practice dominates. And he just continues to show that this dude, this is why people had him as the number 1 wide receiver over Ted McMillan. Now, it wasn't everybody, but this guy was a first-round caliber wide receiver, and there was character concerns and other things like that just kind of bubbled up, and he dropped. That's why he was an A+ draft pick when we drafted him. In my opinion, I gave that an easy A+. And you're seeing that so far. So it's great that we have these rookies immediately contributing. Other kind of stock up people, we'll kind of go more into that with the offense, but those are the two biggest ones that are out there. And if we want to talk about the reality checks, the stock down, like I said, Jalen Johnson, just because that really does hit you because you want to see that cornerback one. Doesn't mean that he's bad or anything like that, but you just want to make sure. It just feels like there was a setback of some sort inside of that injury. The next two, I also want to just bring up just the overall pass rush concerns, because what we're hearing is that the offensive line is doing great, which is awesome. But from the defensive standpoint, the only person that we're really hearing a lot from is Montez Sweat. I've also heard too, I will say, it's very small bits and pieces, but last year at this time, we were hearing Trevon Dexter. Oh man, right? And he was making that jump. But right now, we're not hearing too much. We're hearing some with Grady Jarrett. We heard a little bit about Chris Williams. So defensive tackle, I'm not super nervous about. I'm talking about the depth of the defensive ends. You have to play multiple defensive ends out there, and we're just not hearing any news or seeing anything that these defensive ends outside of Montez Sweat are having consistent production and just looking good out there. It seems like Montez Sweat's the only guy that we're hearing about, and that's it. And that's not good. That doesn't add a lot of promise to this, because we went into training camp saying this defensive end group is not good. And we're still here saying it's still not good. And this is a good team. I think that's what we're learning about this team, is that we should be excited about this Bears team. And to me, there's just this giant glaring weakness, which is the defensive end spot. So if we want to talk about stock down, that's something that, or reality check, that's still something that I'm still a little bit nervous about overall with this team. So now let's get into the offense and just kind of recap all the other pieces, stock up, stock down, with some of these offensive skill positions. And I want to kind of summarize the left tackle position. Because if you look at this, it's great that Karan Amagaji was out there. And if you quite frankly want to know, stock up, because he looks better than what he did last season. And that was the biggest fear, is that is what we saw last year, who he actually is. Now, when we drafted him, I was one that I really liked him coming out because he had this potential. And it seemed like it was going to be an easy redshirt year, and that's what we saw. But he got thrusted into action. He missed out on training camp, but this year looking better. Do I think he's going to be a starter? No. And quite frankly, I know it feels like they're throwing him a bone just to kind of put him out there, but it doesn't feel like he ever really had a chance to be the starting left tackle. But what he's showing at least is that he belongs in the NFL. He belongs to be a swing tackle, which is great, because then you have Braxton versus Ozzie Trapillo. And if you had to say stock up, stock down for any of these, it's Ozzie. Ozzie continues to show up day in, day out. I still am curious about what his ceiling eventually would become. That is still my biggest question mark. But Braxton, just not being out there consistently, that's something that is, it still doesn't feel great. So if I had to bet who's going to be the starting left tackle, if it was today, it would be Ozzie Trapillo. If they had to play a game right now, Ozzie's going to go out there as starter. But if Braxton's health can progress, then I think Braxton's going to be that starter. So a couple things that we just have to kind of note with this team overall. Other pieces too, Tyler Scott. Tyler Scott, big time stock down. We have not heard about him. I literally was going through the roster. I was like, oh crap, I forgot he's on the team. But Tyler Scott, big time stock down type of player. Not hearing much out of him. And Kyle Monungai, I'm going to say stock up. He's now playing. He's getting some second team snaps, kind of trying to bump a little bit of Roshan Johnson, because that number 2 spot is still open and up for grabs. Outside of that, if we're looking at the offense, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze having good practices. DJ Moore getting some snaps in the backfield, as we know. But just because they're not at the top of the list doesn't mean that they're bad. But just to kind of round things out, because we've already kind of talked a lot about different areas of this Bears team, I want to talk a little bit about this defense, where we said Montez Sweat, stock up. And also, Nahshon Wright, stock up. Do I want him to be starter? No. I still don't want him to be a starter. I'd rather see Terrell Smith out there. Terrell Smith has shown better performance out there than the Nick McLeods, the Nahshon Wrights. So give me Terrell Smith all day. But the other piece too, we know that it's a cornerback 2 battle. So like I mentioned before with the whole Zay Frazier piece. So Terrell Smith, I'm hoping that he can maybe win that. Otherwise, I'm going with Tyreek Stevenson. I like Nahshon Wright as a backup, Nick McLeod as a backup, but I don't really like that as the actual starter. Other piece too, not a lot of linebacker talk. Ruben Hippolyte turns heads with some speed. But besides that, Noah Sewell made a couple little plays, but we're not hearing a lot week 2. Last but not least, the punt returner. Still no sign of who's actually going to be the punt returner truly, but we'll see what ends up happening, because when you have a absolute stud like Luther Burden out there at wide receiver, I think that now they have to say how much of a role is he going to have in this offense, because if it's a big role, don't put him at punt returner. But I still feel realistically, he's not going to have a gigantic role. So put him at punt returner, put him at wide receiver, let him contribute to the team and let him show off how athletic he is. So, is there anybody that I might have missed with this overall summary? Anybody that you're kind of curious about? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you're out there, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the YouTube channel tremendously. And also download the podcast and rate it 5 stars. With that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and